Welcome to the Cinci Postcast. And before we begin, can I talk to you for a second about your beer saviors at Streetside Brewery? Streetside Brewery is a sponsor of the Postcast. We love them. You love them. They're a neighborhood brewery in Columbia, Tusculum that will make you wish you lived in the neighborhood. But no matter where you're from, even if that's San Diego, you're always welcome at Streetside. Whatever kind of beer you're into, Streetside has you covered. Their boring beer lager is the perfect patio drinking beer for a warm day. Their GoldenEye Pale Ale is so good, it should be more illegal than playing his odd job. They've got live music on the patio, food trucks outside, and they're even the home of Cincinnati's Fulham Football Club supporters. You can find all of the events happening online at streetsidebrewery.com. And when you go, be sure to mention the Cincinnati Postcast to get $1 off all of your pints for the evening. You'll save $1 on some delicious beer and let them know that sponsoring this silly podcast was actually a smart business idea. If you're listening to this in your car, you know what? Work can wait. Turn that car around as safely as you possibly can and head to Streetside. I'm confident it will be better than whatever else you had planned for your day. Streetside Brewery. Prove that you know ball by calling it your favorite. Oh, and on the postcast today, we've got one hell of a show. In segment 1, we're talking FC Cincinnati's improbable come-from-behind victory versus the other team from New York. Was this the best meaningless game in team history? And how did the vibes flip from going 2-0 down to 4-2 winners? And in segment 2, joining us fresh off his first team debut and winning performance on Monday, we've got FC Cincinnati goalkeeper Paul Walters. It's a fun and awesome interview, and we're so grateful that Paul took the time to tell us a little bit about what was going through his head as he stood in front of the Bailey for the second time. Second? You're going to have to listen and find out. And finally, we round up some rumors, preview FCC's Friday match in the Leagues Cup knockout rounds, and answer a few mailbag questions. Add it all up, and that'll be your postcast. Sound good? Let's ride. Oh, and joining me to talk about all that and more, it's Kevin Wallace from The Post. Kevin, hey. How many people do you think turned the episode off immediately when they heard me doing the intro, thinking this was going to be an unhinged Chief and Friends episode?
It could have been a lot of fun. I think I would have enjoyed listening to that more. But man, this is a very full episode. We were talking right before recording. This could easily be a 4 or 5 parter if we really wanted it to.
There's a lot going on, which is fun because that truly is the magic of the Leagues Cup, I would say, is that everything you know is wrong. Up is down, left is right.
Yes.
We go to PKs immediately after 90 minutes. Why not flip up who's doing the introduction to the show today?
Oh,
Kevin,
I love it.
We have so much to get to. We have so much going on that I think, with your permission, do I have your permission?
Yes.
Yes. With your permission, let's dispense with the usual 15 to 20 minutes of tomfoolery.
Oof.
And let's get right into what we're here to talk about. And that is one of the most exciting, meaningless games in the FC's history. The FC beats NYCFC 4-2, coming back, I believe, from the first time in MLS club history to win a game when down 2 goals. Did I read that right?
It feels right.
I think they've had a couple of draws.
Yes,
where they've been down 2, but I don't think that until Monday night, I don't think they'd actually won a game when down 2.
Plenty of games lost having been up 2. So
there have been a few of those, haven't there?
Some high profile ones at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you attend?
I attended in style. Chief, you and I think combined had tickets that would make people question their Patreon subscriptions but I feel confident in saying we spent $0 or next to no dollars on our tickets.
Yeah. See, that's the fun thing about this whole the meaningless NYCFC game. And that's that, folks, if you don't know this already, this is a little life hack from the Chief. And I think, Kevin, you'll co-sign on this, that games like this are where you absolutely find the value in sitting in seats that you have no business being in.
Yes.
When you have games like this, you'll recall we did the U.S. Open Cup in the pitch view seats before they stopped offering those for sale during U.S. Open Cup matches. Mostly because I'm convinced that the group of us drank them, like we drank them dry, I think, on that night, between Grayson and I, at least. But yeah, no, these games where they're like this, where they're add-ons, where, you know, it's maybe on a Monday night, maybe it's on short notice, maybe you really don't want to go to this game, you do tend to find a lot of great deals when it comes to, I'm going to buy these tickets on the secondhand market, or in some cases, I'm not using these tickets right now. Do you have any interest, or do you know anyone who would want to use those?
Yes, that was very nice. So yes, I got to partake in pitch view seats. I am lucky enough that I have a family member who has, I believe, season tickets in pitch view, and I would argue the best seats in pitch view, particularly we're like 8 or 9 rows up, dead center of the center line, is pretty great. I enjoyed this, though. The tickets were not offered to me. They were offered to another family member of ours, who then asked me to be their plus one. So that was super nice.
The roundabout way.
Yes, but I really enjoyed this. So I thought, oh, this would be really funny. I'll wear my Post shirt, just the generic Post logo shirt from Cinci Shirts, and
promo code the Post Cinci at checkout for 10% off.
Of course. And that works on Post merch. What is my cousin wearing as I pick him up? Also a Post t-shirt. Because
you look right there. It's like, well, one of us has to change now, right?
So we were both rocking Post t-shirts right smack dab in the middle of pitch view. That was something special.
It is a sponsor type of podcast because I am drinking a boring beer from Streetside. That's his actual name. It's not a boring beer. So we're just dropping sponsorships left and right here.
I don't know if you want to disclose where you were, Chief, but it's I believe you're in one of like 2 seats or sections of the stadium I have yet to have a chance to sit in.
Yeah, I was up in the Legends Club, which completely misnamed when I'm up there.
Bailey Legend.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting little perk area up there. It's in the corner. Yeah. So Jonah, it's okay with Jonah. It's in the corner, and it's just kind of a nice little setup up there that they've got. Nice little indoor air conditioned area. Very nice on a humid night like we had on Monday. I could think of no better way to celebrate the last match in FC Cincinnati history that I will go to, where I won't probably be consuming a legal edible in the state of Ohio since they legalized weed on Tuesday.
Ooh, that's a good point. Will they sell eventually, edibles at a concession stand?
I think they're missing the boat not doing it. Honestly, like, are you familiar with the THC seltzers that they have around town now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There is no excuse why those are not available for sale at various locations around TQL Stadium. They are completely legal. They're a phenomenal alternative for, I don't want to drink alcohol, but I do want to feel something during my match tonight.
Yep.
Many of them are no or low calorie. Great if you're watching your carbs, but you still want to have a little bit of a buzz going during the match. I think if it's me and I can make one major addition to the beverage lineup at TQL Stadium, if I can make one major addition,
okay,
I'm adding Streetside, obviously. The best beer in Cincinnati. Promo code, the Cinci Postcast, or mention the Cinci Postcast when you buy your beer for $1 off your pint at the tap room. If I could make 2 changes to the beverage lineup that FC Cincinnati matches, I would like them to add one of the THC seltzers that are available.
That would be perfect. They do offer the Ollie Pops. I believe they have a sponsorship deal with FC Cincinnati, which has like 40% of your daily fiber in each one of those little sodas. So
they better add more stalls in the men's room if that's what they're offering.
it lets you feel a very different feeling during a match.
Yeah. And what it's like, it's a different kind of buzz happening in a different kind of the body when that goes on, I think.
Yeah.
Boy, nothing, no worse feeling than when the catcher puts two fingers down in the middle of a soccer match. It's not where you want to be most of the time.
Chief, did the Legends Room have a complimentary food and beverage situation? Is that what it looked like up there?
Well, yes, they did.
Nice.
It was very nice. No, it's very, very nice. They are tickets that I don't even know how you get these tickets. It was just one where I know someone who managed to get those tickets offered to them that had no desire to go watch a game where both teams had already advanced into the next stage. So it is the curse of the nice seat, is that usually at the best games, the nice seats are being occupied. So you're on your own with a lot of that sort of stuff. But thank you. I'm sure he's listening right now. And I know he's listening and deeply regrets not going to the game, because I got a text message immediately afterwards of, I really should have used my own tickets tonight. Yes, you should have.
In fairness, it was kind of rough for long stretches of this game. But
no, we've said this before. We're a process-oriented podcast, as Grayson likes to point out. The thought process behind not going to this game was solid.
Made sense.
That's all you can ask for. It was kind of an irrational decision to take time to go to this game. But sometimes you make an irrational decision, and for a brief moment, the universe lines up in your favor. And man, did the universe line up in your favor if you attended this game.
This was so good. Like, especially the first 20, 25, maybe even 30 minutes, like, this team was on the front foot, attacking, pushing. It looked really good. 30 minutes is probably pushing it, although they look good even after they score. Of course, NYCFC scores.
Let's set with the lineup right here first.
That's a good call.
Do you have the lineup in front of you?
I have it in front of me. This is exciting to read off the first name on this lineup because he makes an appearance later this podcast, but it's Paul Walters in goal for the FC. Ian Murphy, Kip Keller, Alvis Powell, left to right as your backline. Brett Halsey, Luca Orishano, your outside backs. Pinto, Wobodo, and Dado is your midfield trio with Corey Baird and Kevin Kelsey up top. It was a very rotated lineup. Not as rotated as it could have been. Chief, I do get to say I told you so. It did feel like a Paul Walters type of game.
I had no idea what a Paul Walters game felt like. So kudos to you for recognizing the feeling that none of us could have ever possibly had, because Paul Walters has never played for this team before. But you know what? I don't want to talk out of turn. We're going to segment 2. We have an interview with Paul Walters, who was kind enough to give us a little bit of his time this week in what was, I'm sure, just a great week to be Paul Walters. I think we can all say that.
Yeah.
It's probably always a great week to be Paul Walters, but this week especially a great week to be Paul Walters. And he was nice enough, and I think you'll really enjoy the interview we have with him in segment 2. Yeah, you know what? I can't fault it. I do stick by my thought that if Evan Loro is going to be your backup for the remainder of the season with Alec Can out, that I would have liked to have gotten Evan some minutes here. But you know what? Kudos for Paul. He acquitted himself really well. And I think after you hear this interview, you'll understand more fully what an incredibly special thing that was on Monday. That a guy who, well, I won't spoil it, but listen to the interview and you'll understand why it's kind of cool.
I do just want to talk about it because now, having had that conversation with him, I have a deeper appreciation for what happened on Monday. For sure.
So we'll put a pin in that, and we'll maybe talk about it when we come out of the interview in segment 3. I don't want to spoil it because it's such a really cool moment in the interview.
Yeah,
but
you have some names.
Heavily rotated squad.
Yeah.
some interesting names in the lineup. Corey Baird up top. Brett Halsey, who seems like he's really been finding himself struggling for minutes on this team. The back line is what the back line is at this point. The other name that stands out to me on this is Malik Pinto, who we had mentioned in the last episode, where it feels like he'd been very missing from this team prior to playing a couple of minutes at the end of the last game.
Yeah.
Gets the start here. What were your first, other than Paul in goal, your thoughts on this lineup and where it was?
I didn't hate it. It's funny, you understand how the backline ends up that way, but that was, I'm pretty sure, our starting backline against New York Red Bulls, the last game we saw in person together there. It was pointed out to me, and I regret not having this top of mind in our last episode. Pinto had been dealing with an injury. He had an ankle injury that sidelined him for about a month. So having been corrected on that, excited to see him back. I was really excited, though, to see Dado be the Lucho Acosta role. Like that is ultimately where I think if Dado has a future with this team and with FC Cincinnati, and I think he does, I think he is ultimately the heir to Lucho's roster spot. And if that's 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, so be it. But it was exciting to see Dado there and ultimately performed very well. When they announced the in-stadium player of the match, ultimately went to Yuya Kubo. I was sort of disappointed that Dado was robbed there. I thought he was very much the man of the match in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because so these cup games, and especially a game like this, you want to accomplish something in a match like this. And obviously, job number one is to win. You want to win. You want to keep the vibes going. And I think, as you pointed out, the pathway to maintaining in the League's Cup is definitely easier winning than it would have been with a loss in terms of which teams are on which sides of the bracket that you'll be facing. So obviously a win, it's important. But I think the other thing in this match that I sort of took away as like a top line takeaway is this team has looked awful without Lucho Acosta on the field. Yeah. And I believe on the last match they played when they beat Querétaro, that was the first match they had ever won without Lucho Acosta on the field since Lucho Acosta joined the team.
Insane. And all it took was playing literally the worst team in Mexico, a team that has half the transfer market squad value of the worst MLS team.
Right. That's all it took. Is that all? So this tournament so far, the storyline of these two matches for me is this team learning what the hell to do with itself when Lucho Acosta isn't available. Now, Lucho Acosta has returned to training as of today. Apparently, he and DeAndre Yedlin were back in training, according to the reports that we saw from Laurel and Pat out of Mercy Health.
Yeah.
But even still, these are valuable minutes, and this is valuable shit from Dado Valenzuela of y'all have to figure out how to do this when he's not around sometimes. And if that's on a card suspension, which Lucho, he's shown the ability to have happen to him in the past, or picking up a knock and you need to give him a match or two off to get him healthy for a stretch run. It's nice to see that they have put 2 wins together without him on the field.
And NYCFC puts together a kind of first choice lineup, like not as rotated as us. I'm not super familiar with the intricacies of their roster and where everybody is at the moment and the ups and downs of their season, but those were a lot of their starters out there.
You look and you see Maxi Morales on the field. It's like they're not holding back their best players there.
Right. Exactly. James Sands was out there. So yeah, it was a good team. And then to not only ultimately get the win without Lucho, but to dominate long stretches of this game and to put it to teams and to put it to NYCFC and to be taking lots of shots. It was nice. It was really, really good to see. And it was really nice to see that, like, our depth can maintain and hold its own, because it's something that we have not seen up to this point. Now, I don't know how motivated NYCFC is, and obviously this is at home, and we've seen this team struggle in particular, rotated heavily like in New York against the Red Bulls and things like that. So sure, plenty of qualifiers, but I'd rather see this team perform better than not, and it performed very, very well for about the first 25 minutes or so. And then
first 25 minutes, there were multiple big chances that FC Cincinnati had to score. And if there's one thing that I do, there's a theme of this with FCC, is that they get on teams for long stretches of matches where they don't score.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will have other stretches where they hit you with a flurry, like we see later in this match.
Yeah.
But there are times where this team plays with its food a little bit too much and gets a little too cute and seems like they're dominating, but yet you look up and the scoreline is still the same as it was 20 minutes ago. And they've expended a lot of that energy on offense and used up a lot of good ideas with not a lot to show for it.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, there were a lot of opportunities this team had to score, including a volley from Gato Valenzuela that would have been the best goal in team history. Like,
it would have surpassed Barrial's goal easily.
Yeah, cleared it clean. Like that dude that set the world record on the pole vault the other day. Not the guy that, like, you know, hit his dick on the bar and missed the record. No, like, legitimately would have cleared Barrial's goal by a fair margin. Just one of the prettiest strikes you will ever see. Right off the woodwork.
Inches. Just, so close.
Dato, and like, you know, I'm glad he had a good match. He ends up with 2 assists in this match, I think.
Yep.
And it's interesting, like, Dato has to lead this team in almost incredible goals. I feel like he's good for at least one of those a match where it's like, we're so close here, Dato.
You've got to be hyped for the future, because as soon as he just dials in that accuracy just another notch, he's going to be on fire.
Yeah, I think that the solution, honestly, is there needs to be just a bit of a vibe switch for him. And I have an idea for this.
Okay.
We need to loan him somewhere in the USL Championship and allow him to go by Dato in that league. Because did we talk about this on the pod, or is this an off the pod?
This was an off the pod conversation, but I think we're safe to expose some of these secrets.
Okay, so apparently there is a rule in MLS that the only way you are allowed to have a different name than your last name, your legal government name on the back of your jersey, is if there is some place you have played previously where that is the name you have been known by. So Obina Wobodo gets to have Obina on the back of his kit, even though that's not his surname, because when he played somewhere previously, he had that as his surname on the back.
Yeah.
But you can't come to MLS and decide, I want a different name. You can't come and say, my nickname is Diesel now, I want Diesel on the back of my jersey. It doesn't work that way. Like Chicharito got to keep Chicharito on the back when he went to Galaxy, because, again, he'd been known by that somewhere else. He doesn't have to have Hernandez on the back. So Dato cannot go by Dato on the back of his jersey, which would be the coolest thing ever.
Yes.
Because of this dumb rule. But if he were to go play and say, I don't know, Hartford Athletic,
maybe,
or, like, you know,
Indy?
Do a stint at Indy 11 out of the 18.
Don't send him to Louisville. Don't you dare.
No, there's nothing. Hold on. There is nothing better than Louisville taking our players and, like, here, hold on to him for a minute. We'll need him in a second.
I do like the idea of one of our guys going and being, like, the best player on their team.
Right. Score like about 10 goals, get your last name situated, then come back to MLS. Be like, see, I went by Dotto at Louisville City. I need Dotto on the back of my jersey now.
Okay, if that's what gets it, I'm for it.
I feel like that's the difference between him making goals like that and missing goals like that, is getting the Dotto on the back of the kit.
I'm for this.
I like this.
Okay. So we've got Dotto sorted out.
Yes.
So that's
Did Corey
easy.
Barrett have a nickname in high school or something like that?
More on him in a little bit there. But
yeah, if you were fraternity brothers with Corey Barrett, there's a good nickname for him. Let us know, because we might have to workshop this one too.
Yeah, right. But after NYCFC scores their goal, they've got FCC pinned back
on the ropes.
It's
and this
rough.
is the part where I didn't want to glaze him too much when he's on the show. Paul Walters has a hell of a first half in this game.
He does.
He concedes the one goal, which the goal NYCFC scores is it's a beautiful goal. It's a long over the top ball down the right-hand side that falls perfectly to the feet of the winger, who controls it close contact with one touch. He's already being led towards the 18-yard box with one pass, cuts across the middle. Everyone's ball watching. There's somebody wide open. Goal that Paul has the goalkeeper has no chance on. There's not a keeper in the world that has that.
The defense let him down for sure.
Rotated back line, going to rotate.
Yeah.
Just it is what it is. But he keeps this team in the game in the first half with a couple saves that he has. A couple point blank shots that he's able to stop. Very composed first half from Paul Walters that is important in hindsight with how this team comes back later.
Yeah, it did sort of feel like, oh man, his performance is going to get overshadowed by ultimately a 2-0 loss. You know, it did feel like the game was trending that way for a little bit there. So it was good to see that bounced back. But yeah, we start to see all of a sudden throughout that second half some pretty good subs. One, Cheeto, which by the way, we're calling him Cheeto. That's how we're doing this now.
It's Cheeto. That is, he comes on in, I want to say the 46th. I'm looking at this right now, the 46th minute. I don't want to say, I want to know.
Well, yeah,
comes on at that halftime, right after half.
Sub,
yeah, so he's the halftime sub.
And a name that I got wrong before, London Agatu, finally shows up. So on the last episode, I kept saying, where's Joey Apinonu? He is on the bench, and I was totally confusing the two. Joey's on loan with Hartford still.
I was wondering about that, but I didn't want to. You were rolling. I didn't want to go anything.
Yeah, no. London Agatu was the player I was wanting to see more of, and I'm going to blame Pat Noonan here for me getting the names wrong, because neither of these guys get to play, and I don't care if Joey's in Hartford. He never gets to play for FCC, so I haven't had a chance to learn them yet. Okay, so London comes in, Cheeto comes in, and I mean, I know it's too early to get hype, but Cheeto looks like the real deal to me. Like
Cheeto's very good.
I'm already hyped for next year.
Cheeto is very, very good. What I wasn't prepared for with Cheeto is how naturally good already he looks getting forward with the ball, and how good his passing is.
Yeah.
And how good his vision is with the ball at his feet. And especially when it comes, like, you know, after you've been watching Kip Keller, who is not as naturally good at this point in his career, man, like Cheeto looks really, really good.
Yeah. I'm excited for Robinson and Murphy to be alongside him. I'm excited eventually when we get Miazga back. I'm excited about that signing.
They bring in Cheeto, you bring in Agatu. At some point, New York City around the 60th minute goes up 2-0.
An impossible angle, but it ultimately is Walters' goalkeeper's error.
It's the rebound lets him down. The initial shot, you want to, if you're not going to catch that, you got to knock it a little further away. It's happened to Roman, and I've gotten mad at him for. It's still nowhere near as bad as what Vermeer used to do on a regular basis with his inability to control rebounds and spills. but the rebound goes right to somebody crashing the boards. It's a goal. You're down 2-0. At this point, I have already sort of packed it in mentally.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking at then after that is after they score, you get the guys who we talked about this in the last episode. Guys are just there to get their work in. That this is their 30 minutes to get their work in. You bring them off the bench, and it's sort of a series of substitutions with Pavel Buka on in the 63rd minute, Yuya Kubo on in the 63rd minute, and then Yamil Assad on in the 72nd minute to sort of see out, like, that's the hockey line substitution right there.
Yeah.
Sergio Santos comes on in the 79th minute. So around about this time, boy, does it start making a difference who has subbed into this match.
Yeah.
Because Pavel Buka, Cheeto, and Agedu look very good.
Yeah.
Look very good. Again, the goal that is scored is not on them. It's probably a goalkeeper's goal on that one. Inexperienced goal. Which is still like, look, it's your first start. Yeah. That's not bad. That's you give one of those up. That's not a big deal. You can live with that from a first-time starter. But the back line settles down, and Pavel Buka comes in and is almost immediately a difference maker in this match.
Oh my God, I gotta pull this up, but he was so good in this game. Yeah, this is the quote. Carter had this after the game from Buka. "I had an anger inside me, and I just released it on the pitch," Pavel Buka said post-game. "It went well. I scored, and we won." It goes on to say, "We needed to win at home because this season we've lost so many games in front of our fans, and we wanted to give them some joy." We have said Pavel Buka is the strongest player on the team multiple times on this podcast, and
maybe we were maybe we weren't serious enough about this. It's not just his muscles. It's also the man's heart.
He might be the Hulk. He might be the Hulk.
He might actually be the Hulk. Okay. So he says he was angry. He came into this game angry. So I'm gonna give you a little multiple choice here.
Okay.
What was Pavel Buka angry about? I'm gonna give you 3 choices.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Number 1, that a notoriously private individual who wants to do his talking in the weight room and on the field, not happy about everyone learning all the intimate details of his personal life and knowing about his dog, Molly.
Yeah.
Number 2, Pavel Buka is chronically online and has seen the rumors, first of Weston McKennie and now of Richard Sanchez, that this team is looking to bring in something of a box-to-box midfielder that would send him to the bench.
Oof.
Or number 3, we're not losing another fucking game at home. I'm angry I haven't been in this entire time, and I'm like a caged animal wanting to get there and fix things.
I'm going to hope it's not number 2, and I'm going to say it's number 3, because I think he's been hanging out too much with Lucho Acosta, because that is exactly how Acosta plays as well.
That's how Acosta comes off the bench. He comes out fired out of a cannon. And I am going to make you regret that you haven't seen me for 90 minutes total. Like I have a lot of making up to do to make you hate me for a full 90 here.
Yeah, he's got an effort meter that will be spent to 0 every game. Now, whether that's slowly paced out over 90 minutes or whether that is crammed into the last 30 minutes of a game, he's expending all of the effort.
Yeah. I hope it's 3. It also wouldn't surprise me if it's number 2. Being honest, if we're being honest, it's very interesting to me that the only rumors that we're seeing about this team are box-to-box type midfielders, and that's Pavel Buka's spot, where he has played exceptional football for this team. Not just good, exceptional football. And he comes in off a pass from Dado Valenzuela. Sort of one touch around the defender, kind of a big touch, but then recomposes himself, fires a shot near post, beating the keeper. And at this point, my first thought is, well, that's interesting. Right. You know, we're gonna at least make them sweat for the last 20 to 30 minutes of this game. I don't know that I still I had the idea that they're gonna win this game, but I was like, well, at least we're going to make them nervous here a little bit.
Yeah. We give them a little pressure. And And it's not even a minute or two later, and Yamil Assad goes on a run that rivals Lucho's goal of the year. Now, it doesn't have the individual skill that embarrasses defenders, but it is longer.
It's longer, and it's one of those runs where, so he starts with the ball in his own half and just keeps going.
Yeah.
And you're watching this, and my thought is, I think to myself, surely someone is going to step up and dispossess him at some point, right? Nope.
He just keeps on going. And what's really funny is we've seen this before from Assad. He is a dribbly boy at heart, and he cannot not take a player on or try a bit of skill that maybe wasn't 100% necessary. And he doesn't do it. He maintains, he holds back, and it's just, it's not even particularly fast. Like it's pretty quick with the ball, but it's not like he's in a dead sprint.
No, it's close control with the ball. Like it's very, very good in terms of, not making the donkey foot touch that makes it difficult for him to do what he's doing. It's very, very good close control of the ball, but it's just, he just knifes the defense.
Yeah.
Like it just completely guts him, goes into the 18, right outside the 18-yard box, fires, goal. And then I have two thoughts at this point. Number one, three thoughts. I'm going to put them in order here.
Okay.
Three major thoughts right here. Thought number one, RIP in peace to Pat Brennan's game story that he was probably already working on at this point.
Yes. Number
two, you wonder if Paul Walters is thinking to himself, I got to do PKs. Fuck.
No.
This is, no, I don't know if I like this. This is not what I was promised. This is not good. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Number three, and this is sort of an overall thought. Yamil Assad is on a guaranteed comp of $89,716 per the MLSPA salary dump.
Good God.
There is a cogent argument to make that he's been the best signing of 2024. Like, you would think that it's like Luca Orishano is way up here. Yamil Assad is not that far off in terms of value, in terms of production, what he's brought to the team, where he plays, and when you also add in the value contract he's on, I don't know what to say. Like, help me explain how Yamil Assad didn't have a contract for someone when this season started.
Like, it is insane how good he is given everything. Like, he was kind of seen as an MLS washout. He was a complete free agent, unattached, partway through the start of the season. I don't think he was signed before the season started. He signed like a couple of weeks into the season. So he's not even a preseason signing or we'll have him out for a trial thing. And there's stories out there that he's just brought in because he's Lucho's friend and he's like Lucho's emotional support friend or whatever. But like, yeah, if that's true, that just adds to his value. Like,
he was signed on March 28th, 2024. This season was a month old.
Yeah.
When Yamil Assad was signed. And it's one thing where I remember this conversation you, me, and Grayson had. We've had it off the air a ton. We had it on the podcast at least once when we noted that the first time he played with this team, it was a late substitution. And you're like, you know what? He looked good with Lucho. There's some chemistry there with him.
Yeah.
This is a game fully without Lucho. And he looked really good.
He still looked good.
His own, yeah.
So he's not only there for Lucho. He might have made another friend or two along the way.
Right. He's not just Lucho's Padawan here. He's a fully formed Jedi Knight of his own. And this is this league makes no sense. Just this, I don't understand. Yamil Assad looks like a baller. He looks like an absolute baller.
Yamil Assad being on this team is why you signed Chris Albright. Like, this is not a player that is signed with a European GM at the helm. That even without the relationship with Lucho, that you would know that you could find a league veteran who has ball playing skills and then have a coach who is able to deploy him in such a way that he's able to contribute regularly and successfully to this team. It's awesome. It is so cool. And somebody threw out in the Discord, what would you tell yourself, earlier this season if you knew Yamil Asad was essentially the locked on left back starter on this team? And I think my first reaction would be, oh my God, Luca Orishana was a bust.
There's that, and it's also this idea too that it's multiple kudos to Albright here in the front office. Number one, look, I think everyone agrees this person came in as Lucho said, hey, I know this guy, he can play.
Yeah,
we should give him a shot. Not every GM out there is big enough to be like, yeah, my star player knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Let's give this a shot. A lot of these people have an ego that would stop them from taking a suggestion from the help or the employees, as it were. Yeah. The other thing, too, about this is that this is, how many times did we say this during the NYCamp era of other teams that got incredible production out of supplemental roster spot guys while FC Cincinnati was paying guys full freight to be terrible? Like, that has to be, it has to be infuriating to be NYCFC or some of these teams and watch yourself get scored on by a guy making league minimum that was available for free to anyone who wanted to sign him before the year started. Like, you have to just be furious with your front office that the rich get richer in Cincinnati by finding guys like this. And you need guys like this. These are the guys you have to have if you're going to be throwing tons of money around to players like Cheeto, like Miles Robinson, and signing dudes to max TAM deals. You better be able to maximize out your $90,000 roster spots. Yeah, this is maxing out a $90,000 roster spot right here.
Yeah, so I'm going to use Cincinnati Soccer Talk's roster tracker, updated by Ken over there. I'm just going to read off the names on the supplemental reserve and homegrown roster spots. These guys have cap charges that are functionally $0, and they're all making less than $100,000 a year. Let me know if you've heard any regular contributors to this season. Kip Keller, Brett Halsey, Yamil Asad, Ian Murphy, London Agedu, Paul Walters, Malik Pinto, Dado Valenzuela, Steven Jimenez. You can almost put together a starting 11 from guys that are basically zero charges on the salary cap, and you'd feel okay about it.
We should put Luke the intern onto this. I would be willing to bet that FC Cincinnati has gotten more minutes out of their supplemental roster than anyone else in the Eastern Conference.
Brett Halsey, Yamil Asad, Ian Murphy, Kip Keller is literally our starting defense right now.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it's maximizing your roster spots and I don't know. I saw some stuff online that was critical of Chris Albright this week. I think you should seriously rethink a lot if you want to be critical of the roster Chris Albright has built. It's not perfect. It's a salary cap league. Yeah. Nothing's perfect. It's damn good.
You're gonna have misses. Yep.
So here we go. This for me is the play of the game, and I love everything about this. And this is a play where I rarely say this. This is a play that made me rethink the season totally. And it's weird that you ever get this encapsulated into this right here. It's a thought I'd been flirting with for a while. It hit full form right here with this play. It is about 5 minutes after Assad absolutely, annihilates the entirety of NYCFC's defense. Cheeto takes the ball in a somewhat advanced position just north of the midfield line, moving forward, and plays one of the best through balls I've seen anyone on this team play from a solid 30 yards. I would say a gentleman's 30 to 35 yards.
Yeah, I was saying, if not longer. Yep. Directly
up the gut of NYC's defense, like from the center of the field, straight to the top of the 18-yard box to Yuya Kubo, who has made a very clever little run, who then snap turns with the ball, fires in one motion, and beats the New York keeper to give FC Cincinnati a 3-2 lead that they wouldn't relinquish. And in this moment sort of encapsulates what FCC could be unburdened by what it has been.
You're running for president by chance?
Right, yeah. No, they hired a high school football coach to fix shit. It's okay. The pass from Cheeto he's already impressed me with his passing.
Yeah.
This is a sublimely good pass from a center back.
Yeah.
It's an aggressive, great vision pass to see the opportunity. It's weighted perfectly. Kubo, like a natural striker, takes this from outside the 18-yard box, slots it past the keeper. And in this moment right here, I could be convinced that this team does not need a striker, that this team needs players to make sure Yuya Kubo never has to drop out of the striker position and back to the midfield or out to the wing again. That there's enough offense with Yuya, Luca, and Lucho that this team does not need to invest in a high-priced number 9 and would be better served investing all 3 of its designated players in the midfield.
I don't know if I've ever come out and stated it so clearly here. I've certainly hinted at it. So let me state it clearly here. The best you're going to do in bringing in a high-level striker now is get you what you already have in Yuya Kubo. That's the best you can do, is match what Kubo brings to this team. And Kubo is already friends with everybody, knows the system. He is proven to be efficient and deadly when he is up top. Yeah, he has a couple of misses, okay? You know, if he was any better, he would still be in Europe and he'd be playing in Champions League, all right? Yuya Kubo is a good enough striker for this team to win any and all trophies that it sets its mind to. The rest of the roster needs to be set up in such a way that he is able to maintain his position at the top. And from there, we can have a good debate and probably opponent dependent on who is next to him, whether that's Luca or Dado or Kelsey or, as we'll see, Santos even. There's a lot of flavors that can be put next to him, paired with him, but I think he has to be your nailed-on starter in games you're trying to win from here on out.
Yeah, I think it's more than that, too. I think not only does he have to be your nailed-on starter, I think that you have to, if you're Pat Noonan and the coaching staff at this point, you have to resist the temptation to take him out of that position.
Yeah.
I don't care that he is the next best option at wingback or defensive mid. You got to find another solution because he needs to stay at striker.
Yeah. You find your third best option. Brett Halsey on the right. It's Malik Pinto getting more minutes, whatever that is. Yeah. Because
I think that we've reached a point where I'm comfortable saying this. I think that, number one, I have to believe that Yuya Kubo, if you just tease out the minutes he plays at striker from his total minutes, like if you dump the minutes where he's playing defensive mid and you dump the minutes where he played wingback, because he's played a lot of minutes this year. I think that he's played more minutes this year than he has in the last 2 years combined. I got to look that, but it's getting close.
It feels right.
Feels right. It has some truthiness to it.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet he's probably one of the top 15 or so strikers in goals per minute when you just limit his minutes to like what he's played at striker.
Yeah. Like he's that good.
It's been really, really good. And I kind of think the team has reached this point now where you just got to go with it and let him get more comfortable playing up there. He already looks good. How much better would he look if you just committed to saying it's him and it's Kevin Kelsey? Y'all learn to play with one another. We've got a stretch run for the end of the year, and this is what we're going with. And just commit to not pulling him away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've seen before, too, that like Kubo's one of the few players that truly seems to understand Lucho. Like their relationship, their chemistry on the field is so good. And we've seen it with Bupenza on some level that like you need that chemistry with Lucho if the striker is going to be successful. And we know Kubo has that. And I've seen people online say like, oh, we need a striker who can, do hold up play and can be efficient, but can also drop back and combine and play defense if the big guy's going to stay up top. That's Kubo. Again, like right. You're just describing Yuya Kubo.
And the other thing I do want to point out is I know people are starting to get down on Kevin Kelsey. And look, I understand if that's you out there that's getting down on Kevin Kelsey. I'm not going to call you out for it, but let me just attempt to redirect the thought a little bit. I think part of the reason why people are getting down on Kevin Kelsey is that he started out so good that he set an expectation level for himself that was frankly unrealistic for a 19-year-old player. Just flat out. I thought he had a quietly effective game playing here. There were multiple instances of very good hold-up play where he was tracking back to offer an option to help break a press or move the ball out of the defensive third. He had a couple very good runs with the ball, holding off defenders in order to maintain possession. I would not give up on Kevin Kelsey by any stretch of the imagination right now. I think he's looking very good. He's developing the way you want him to. I thought he had a good game. I would not be unhappy if the striker pairing is Kubo and Kelsey for the remainder of the year. I think Kelsey has a very, very, very high ceiling. Yeah. But you've got to commit to, no matter what your striker pairing, it starts with Yuya Kubo at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy too, because like if it's not going to be Kelsey, which I think there's a very strong argument for it to be, it almost has to be Luca or Shano. Because you're probably going to keep Assad as your left wing back, and you're probably going to put Yedlin as your right wing back, assuming he's healthy.
And what that also frees you to do, which is very interesting to me now again, is all of a sudden, Sergio Santos has looked kind of dangerous the last few weeks.
I'm so glad you said this. So on his goal, the fourth goal, which is so good, he gets a great breakaway after a little mistake. I'm sitting with my cousin, and as he's making the breakaway, I just leaned over. I'm being mean, and I say, remember, Sergio Santos is good at everything but scoring. And as soon as I said scoring, he scored a goal.
Yeah. Green hair. It wouldn't have been my first choice. Do you think the green hair helps disguise him on the field a little bit because he blends into the turf?
It has to be the case. Did he have green hair when he played Seattle, like in 2022 when he first showed up? And he had like
I need Luke the intern to track Santos efficiency by hair color. There may be a trend here that we need to start betting.
That's really good. I'll tell you this: blue is not his color.
No, we need to stay away from that. Stay away from that. Look, Sergio, I know you're listening. Keep the green hair. It's working. Whatever it is, you scored one goal. Incredible breakaway, maybe an unintentional assist by Dado Valenzuela. I don't know. I know Fatmob was asking that on Twitter, whether Dado meant to do that. I'm going to give Dado the benefit of the doubt. He totally meant to do that.
Yeah.
Either way, great goal by Sergio. And then dude follows it up by, I think he was on scoring a fifth goal immediately afterwards in stoppage time.
Like if he's not on, he's off by millimeters. Okay, right. So good.
I appreciate the refs still stopped the check. Even though this was a 2-goal game in stoppage time with 5 minutes left, I appreciate the commitment to the bit. I'm sure somebody had action that mattered to. And if that was you that had bet 5-2 FC Cincinnati and you didn't cash your bet, I'm so sorry. Also seek help. Seek help. I say this as a man that had the over in the Hall of Fame game in the NFL, but seek help.
I do want to say too, towards the end there, Corey Baird moved to the right wingback position, and it's late in games, you know, the tactics are kind of out the window at that point. But he looked good. Like, he was playing solid defense. He was progressing the ball well. I didn't hate Baird at right wing back in the 10 minutes or so that we saw it. Something there. Maybe at the end of the game, or we're going to a game with a couple of injuries and a suspension. If Kubo is being considered at right wing back, might we not look at Corey Baird as a possible?
Might I interest you in a low mileage Corey Baird in that spot, good sir?
Just
the
saying,
FC wins
terrible.
this game 4-2, and it is amazing what those 15 minutes, starting with Pavel Buka's goal,
yes,
does for the vibes and the narrative around this team. We're schizophrenic, man. Like,
yeah.
This entire fan base went from it's Cope suggesting that this game didn't matter and they're losing at home and this is terrible, to vibes are high. Let's talk about winning the Leagues Cup. Like, we need to. I'm begging people to get a little bit more. And I know I'm the worst offender on this, but like, let's.
It is funny too. Again, does Leagues Cup matter? I think is still an open question.
It mattered a fuckload to everyone that was at that game on Monday night. I can tell you.
Absolutely. But now I will say, having won that game, and especially in the manner in which they did, right? So the vibes are back and all of that. But now the bracket is set up in such a way that had we lost, I think it was a lot easier to write off Leagues Cup, because the path forward was a lot more difficult. Having won, the path is quite a bit easier. You kind of have to start to have some expectations. So
expectations are a motherfucker.
I do want to look at the bracket, but very quickly, another moment from the game I don't want to lose sight of. Sergio Santos waves off everybody when he scores his goal to do a mock proposal to his wife. To be clear, his already married to wife. They apparently had agreed to do a big wedding. They had not had a very large wedding in the past that was coming up, and so it was very funny that he got to do the proposal.
I am mildly disappointed that this wasn't like a throuple situation. just so Cincinnati would have to deal with that conversation.
Oh, he proposed to his girlfriend. Oh, and she's sitting next to his wife.
Yeah, no, and then it's like, you know, soccer is opening a lot of new doors in Cincinnati culturally. Yeah. I mean, you think to yourself, like, could you have imagined this city falling in love with a, we'll say generously, 5'2" Argentinian as its hero as recently as 10 or 15 years ago? Like, you tell yourself, man, can you imagine what I'm doing? What are you doing this weekend? You go back in time, you tell yourself, hey, guess what you're doing in 15 years? You're buying legal edibles at a store, going to a soccer game in a stadium in Over the Rhine to cheer for a 5'2" Argentinian who is the best athlete in the city, while betting on the Reds game on your phone on a mobile device that's a supercomputer inside your pocket. Soccer has changed many things in this town and opened many eyes. The player proposing to his girlfriend while sitting next to his wife, that would have been some fun. That would have been some fun content for the podcast.
I would have changed some things in this city. So unfortunately, we did not get that. We wish the happy couple continued love and joy in their marriage. So in the bracket that we have here, Cincinnati will be hosting Santos Laguna on Friday at 7:30 p.m. according to this thing. I don't know if that's when the pregame starts or if that's actually the kickoff, but 7:30 p.m. The winner of that match will face the winner of Philadelphia and Montreal. Further down in our quadrant here, should we make it past the first two games, we would play in the quarterfinals, one of DC United, Mazatlan, Orlando City, and Cruz Azul. Orlando City and Cruz Azul, easily the two best teams down there. They play each other first, so only one of them's getting out of there to start. Now, the group that we avoided that New York City is in is Tigres and Pachuca playing the winner of New England and NYCFC. So we would have played New England first, with Miami and Toronto facing the winner of Columbus and Sporting Kansas City. That is a slog. Now, I will say, having said that, should we make it to the semifinals, we will be playing one of those teams. So,
He sucks.
Yeah.
He sucks. There's no two ways about it. But you know what? If we make it to the semis, we'll figure it out, right?
So what's fun about the semifinals is if you make it to the semis, obviously you're a game away from playing for a trophy. But there is the third place game that they do have the CONCACAF Champions League spot on the line for the third place winner. Not that it's really I guess it is kind of sort of in doubt for FC Cincinnati. So it would be nice to sort of lock up the Champions League spot early.
There is also the other side benefit, and that's that if either FC Cincinnati or Inter Miami makes the semis, it will postpone the FCC Inter Miami tilt, which means that Pat Noonan will not be serving his suspension for that game. And it will instead be serving his suspension, I believe, for the home game against Montreal on the 31st.
So,
which I would much rather have the suspension be for that game than the Miami game.
Especially a home game. It just feels like a better time to lose a coach. So we mentioned expectations before. Should we lay down a marker? Where do we want this team to make it in order to feel successful? Do we already feel successful because we don't care about the Leagues Cup? I'm tempted to say semifinals are bust, but
I would like to see them win this game on Friday.
Okay.
And then if they advance to the round of 16, I think anything beyond that is gravy. But what that will ensure is that that FC Cincinnati will have no longer than hopefully a 2.5 week layoff with a loss. Having said that, you would be disappointed to lose to any team other than Cruz Azul on this side of the bracket, I would say.
Yeah, which would be in the quarterfinals, which would be a tough out, but maybe a half decent proxy for what facing a Miami or Columbus might look like in MLS Cup final or MLS Cup playoffs. So,
yeah. So we'll see. I want winning this Friday. I feel like if you win this Friday, that will have been 3 wins out of a possible 3 matches at Leagues Cup. You feel like your mojo is back a little bit at that point in terms of where you that equals out as long as the losing streak was going into Leagues Cup. And it feels like that balances the ledger a little bit with where this team is, so that you don't feel terrible about them bombing out. The problem is, I think they host until pretty deep into this tournament, if I'm correct.
Grayson had a better grasp on this. I think we would host everything with the exception of a potential Hell is Real semifinal. Right. And then we would host any version of the final, I believe. Other
than against LAFC, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, I believe LAFC goes over us on that one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would hate to lose any of these games at home, and you would think that like you should be winning your home games. But given how this team's home form has been, I don't know.
Yeah,
we shall see. We shall preview that game in the next segment, or in the third segment, because in the next segment, we got a get, I would say.
I would think so.
The official podcast or the unofficial podcast of the Goalkeepers Union of FC Cincinnati. We are pro Goalkeepers Union.
Alec Cannon ducking us.
Right. We'll get him eventually. Maybe once we start pronouncing his name correctly more often.
I'll never come back on then.
No. Paul Walters joins us in segment 2, fresh off his debut performance for the first team and his first win as an MLS player in the first division.
So cool.
And this is a cool interview. I think you're really going to like it. So give it a listen. And then we'll be back in segment 3 to round up some FC Cincinnati loose ends, preview this upcoming game on Friday, and answer a couple Patreon questions that we've been neglecting. So stick around.
Before we get to the next part of the episode, I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Cinci Shirts, which is now the home of official Cinci postcast merch. This is so exciting, and we really never thought we'd see the day, and yet here we are, alive and actually seeing the day. Cinci Shirts has been with FC Cincinnati from the beginning. They've been with the Post for ever now, from the beginning, our very first sponsor. So happy to have them along for this journey. There are 6, count them, 6 different shirts available at this time of recording that you can purchase from their website for real life. This is, again, a real thing that you can do. As I'm sure you know, but I will remind you, they have 3 retail locations, including Fort Mitchell, Loveland, and Oakley Hyde Park, where in those locations, they can print on demand. If they don't have the size of something you want, you can print on demand. I assume this means postcast shirts as well. Give it a shot. Let me know how that goes. If, for some reason, you do not want to purchase one of our shirts, I won't hold it against you. You can use promo code ThePostCinci. That's all one word, all caps, ThePostCinci, for 10% off your next order. This also works with postcast shirts, so please don't pay full price. Make sure you knock 10% off for yourself on that one. Spread the code far and wide, I guess, and let them know about Cinci Shirts and let them know about the podcast while you're at it. Otherwise, the code doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, a huge thank you to Cinci Shirts for sponsoring this episode and so many before it. And if I do see you out there with a t-shirt, I will be embarrassed for you, but I will probably give you a high five and tell you well done. So again, thank you to Cinci Shirts. Thank you to you for buying shirts and using that promo code. Oh, and joining us here, a very special guest today on the Postcast. Since it's the Postcast, you know it's going to be a goalkeeper, right? Fresh off of his first team debut and Cincinnati's own FC Cincinnati goalkeeper Paul Walters. Paul, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
We heard that you just got finished with the film room. What is that experience like after having your first start? Is there some good-natured ribbing in there? Are they overly critical? Are they overly praiseworthy? What's that like seeing your first film session after a start?
I'll tell you, it's definitely a long one. It's definitely probably the longest film session you'll ever have. Because obviously, first game in a first team scenario, there's a lot to unravel. Obviously, I played a lot of games with the second team, and I'd say the more comfortable you get with those games, the more you play them. Not that there's less film, but there's less to go over because you've seen those situations so many times. But when you step into a new environment as in first game with the first team, there's more things to go over. So it's a longer session again, just because there's more things to look at, little details to pick out. But no, it's good natured. I'm not just in there getting battered, So yeah.
Well, Monday night, it did feel at times like you were getting battered on the field. A ton of really good, it turns out to be match-saving saves, I would say. A solid debut for the first team. Absolutely want to say on behalf of the fans, you did great. That was awesome to see. I think the fan base is very jazzed at the depth of the goalkeeper position for this team. But sort of take us behind the scenes a little bit on getting that first team call up here. You've sat on the bench for a couple of matches this season, last season. But yeah, when you found out you were going to be starting, maybe who was the first person or the first group of people you had to reach out to and let them know?
Oh man, I was definitely my parents. Yeah, my parents. And then, cause it was interesting cause, it's kind of a weird thing. Cause you don't want to just go and, scream it to the world because, then next thing you know, other teams are picking up wind of what's going on. And then their preparations can change. So you don't want to go like doing too much. But no, I told, once I knew for sure it was set in stone and I wasn't injured and I was going to be good to go. Obviously my parents knew the day before, but then after I told my aunt and uncles and then a few of my friends, and yeah, that was it. And then they came out, had around 12 or 13 people I had there. So there's
Nice.
definitely a good backbone there. But yeah, it was, yeah.
Are they hitting you up for free tickets when they find out you're starting, or did you make them pay full price?
Of course. I had to buy them. That would have been expensive, but no, I had to ask some of my teammates if I can get some of their tickets, but it all worked out. Everyone was able to come for free, so
Oh, that's great.
that's always a plus.
That's good. That's always good. It's always good to make sure that everyone feels like you're taking care of your boys.
Exactly.
That you always remember where you're coming from. Hey, come to the game on me and come see this happen right here. So when you find out that you're starting this week, how does it change your preparation going into match day versus finding out you're starting versus just sitting the bench for a game?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like in terms of my own preparation, nothing really changes. I have the same preparation I always do, whether I'm playing or not playing. The only like thing that differs is on like a match day -2 and specifically on a match day -1, you're more involved in some aspects with the team. For instance, like working on building out or like the team's pressing. Obviously, the starting keeper is going to be more involved in that process. Whereas if you're on the bench not playing, you're either just like behind them, like as a rotation, or sometimes we'll be off to the side, just getting more work in with Paul or right now Ryan Coulter. So in terms of actual preparation, not much changes. It's just with the team preparation that's a little different.
And with it being Leagues Cup, is there any additional preparation on the fact that if you come in on a first team game in the league, you know, you're not going to have the ending to the match, which at Leagues Cup would be potential PKs. Is there additional preparation that has to go, knowing there is no extra time? We're going straight to penalty kicks at the end of this game.
I'd say like usually, like so today match day -2, and the past match day -2s we've had for like during the stretch of Leagues Cup, just doing PKs at the end, just because obviously in MLS games can end in a tie, so there's no true need for the whole team to come together and do PKs. But obviously right now, since it is a possibility that games can end and go straight to PKs, just making sure everyone's sharp, knowing what the order will be if put in that situation. So yeah, we just come together and work on PKs at the end.
On a similar note, MLS Next Pro ends all draws in penalties as well. Is that something that you specifically train on and practice for when doing MLS Next Pro prep, or is sort of let the chips fall where they may at the end of a game like that?
Yeah, so I know like the second team, because I've played my fair share of second team games. I'll usually be involved with them on the match day -1, the day before the game for them. And yeah, they're always similar to what we're doing now. They always do PKs at the end, every match day -1, whether it's home or away. So, because obviously the whole season, there's that possibility of PKs. So they have to be ready for that the whole season, not just this month stretch. So yeah. They do that all season.
So you get the prep word, you get your tickets for your boys, you're on match day. How is it different walking into the locker room knowing I'm starting this game at TQL Stadium for the first team?
It's definitely more nerve-wracking, that's for sure. You walk in with a lot more nerves, but no, it's I try to go about my business the same every game. And obviously like nerves are like a normal thing. So I was obviously more nervous than usual. But you know, I have trust in my preparation and my talent. So I just kept telling myself, you know, I've trained for this, I've prepped for this. there's nothing that I can't handle that I haven't already seen. So just it's another game. Just go out in there and do my thing. So yeah, trying to stay level headed and just relax as much as possible.
Now, when you're in that situation, do you like it when other people come up and talk to you to try and break the nerves? Or are you one of the types of people that I'm just going to focus on my own thing? I don't need to talk to anybody. Just leave me alone as I get ready for what I'm about to do.
I like being left alone. Because like I've had like both ends of the spectrum. I've had people that say like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. Like just go out there. And then I've had people like that are like more stern about it. And it's like, just go out there, just do your thing. And I'm like, I don't need to hear all this. Like, let me be, and I'll go out there and I'll do my thing. So, yeah.
I love the idea of somebody coming up to you to tell you to do your thing, and you're just like, oh my God, that's a great idea. I was going to do something completely different.
I wasn't planning on it,
Yeah. I was just going to wham this first free kick directly out of bounds, but I'm glad that you told me to put it in play. This is mind-blowing information right here.
So you've obviously had plenty more experience with the second team, and a big part of the goalkeeping role is developing that relationship with your back line and barking out those orders. You're thrust onto what is essentially a new team, a different back line. Did you find it difficult to find a rhythm, a cadence with those guys, or did maybe the experience of a guy like Cheeto and even Murphy at this point, did that make it easier to sort of find your cadence and find your your leadership back there?
Yeah, I'd say it didn't really feel uncomfortable. Like nothing was, I guess, nothing was like out of the usual. So everything felt, because obviously we train together every day. We build that connection every day. Obviously Cheeto's newer, but he's been with us the last week and a half. So getting to know him the past week. So nothing was really changed. It's just, obviously it's loud in there. So communication is a little harder when they're farther up the field. But other than that, it's nothing really was bizarre. Nothing felt bizarre. It still felt natural playing with those guys.
We talked to Evan Loro after his first start, and he was on the show as well. And he told us that like he was desperate to get that first touch of the ball, that I want to get the ball at my feet. And he said, I'm just going to blast this as hard as I can down the field. Were you just shoot something at me, get me the ball quickly? I need to feel like I'm into this game. Or what was that like when you're on the field, when you take the field the first time?
I wouldn't say I was like anxiously awaiting it, because I knew obviously you're going to touch on.
It's coming.
You're going to touch the ball eventually, and if you don't touch the ball at all, great day. You don't have to do anything. But
I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a great day if you don't touch the ball.
Exactly. That's ideal. But yeah, odds are you're going to touch the ball. So just being ready for it and just doing your thing. If it's on to play short, it's on to play short. If it's not, just go up a little bit up the field,
Yeah. So what I really like about to sort of take a step back here. So you've made the first team debut at this point, Leagues Cup. You share that with an individual named Lionel Messi, by the way, making their MLS debut at Leagues Cup. So congratulations on that one. But I do want to take a step back. You're from Cincinnati, but your career, I think, sits at an interesting crossroads for soccer in Cincinnati and soccer in the United States, where you start playing high school soccer for a couple of years. You leave Lakota West High School, go Firebirds. Nick Haglin's high school as well there. You leave after 2 years to join the academy for FC Cincinnati. This is an opportunity that Nick Haglin didn't have, or any other player up until 2019 had. Describe to me sort of the process there of being recruited or trying out. I genuinely don't know what it looked like in 2019 to go from high school to this brand new academy. So,
it was definitely interesting, because up until my freshman, sophomore year, I wasn't really playing soccer with obviously as a kid, you're all like, oh yeah, professional athlete. Like, but I like, and obviously like when the teachers ask that and you hold up your board on the first day of school, I think I did have professional soccer player, but that was just because I had no idea what else I wanted. I put that, but I wasn't like, I didn't take it serious. Like I wasn't doing extra steps to actually like achieve this goal.
Yeah.
It was just more of like I enjoyed it and it was like a social outlet because I had all my friends. But no, sophomore year of high school came around. I was playing for varsity. I was having a decent season, and my coach for my club team at the time, his name was Hans Pasquale. He played at Xavier University with the goalkeeper coach of the academy at the time, Dave Shurik. So they played at Xavier together. And I think Hans had reached out to him at one point and said, look, I got this guy. Like I heard the academy starting up. Can you take a look at him? Like, I can't promise you he's any good, but can you take a look at him? And Dave said, sure, why not? Like, why not? Let's have him out here. So after my because I couldn't go because I had my sophomore season. But after my sophomore season ended, I think it was around like October, I went and had a like 3-day trial with the academy because they were already like halfway through their season because they start in August. They were already a few months into their season. So I go and I had a 3-day trial and I didn't initially like make the team. So they have like development players. I haven't been like in tune with the academy for a few years. I'm pretty sure it's the same way, but they have development players and then they have like your full-time academy players, which most of them are. But basically I made the team as a like development player. So I wasn't like a full-time.
Right.
I was a development player. So what that meant was I would train like every day with FCC's academy.
Right.
But I would play games on the weekend with my other club, which was Lakota FC. So it was definitely unique, but yeah, I could train with FC's academy, which was great. That's what I wanted. And then I'd play games with my other club. And then after, I think about 6 months, coming into like the spring season, they kind of brought me in as just a full-time player. So I had left my old club, which wasn't easy to do. I'd been with those guys for 10 plus years. I grew up with them. But no, they were all very like supportive and understanding because at that point I was wanting to go pro and I was trying to focus on it. So they all understood, they all encouraged me. But so I left my old club to come join the academy full time. And yeah, that was really the whole process of joining the academy. Just because of that connection with the goalkeeper coach and my old club coach. So,
and I'm fascinated to know just a little bit that I don't know if you would be the first person like this, but did you go to FC Cincinnati games when they were in USL down at Nippert Stadium?
And I had an interview. I did like an interview after the game, and I think they posted it on Twitter or something. It was like they said like story time with Paul. And it was me talking about how I'd gone to Nippert games as a kid, and I remember it was the one where my first game actually, I think they were in the Open Cup, and I think they were playing Chicago Fire in the Open Cup. I think it was. Don't quote me on it, but I think it was the Open Cup, and it was a good game. They went into PKs.
Yeah.
Mitch Hildebrandt saved like 3 in a row and we won the game.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously, like soccer was like new to the city. So like it was sellout crowd and most of the games were, which was awesome. And I remember like being in the stands and I was like, oh my, like this is sick. Like awesome. So then after that, like I went to a few more games and then because Nick was on the team at that point, he orchestrated a Lakota East versus Lakota West penalty shootout at halftime.
Yeah. They used to do like the high school rivalry penalty shootouts at halftime. So
if Nick went to West, we had like a West versus East like weekend. And I remember I was like such a sweat at the time. I was telling them this. I had my like full leggings on, my undersleeves. I had my gloves. I had my jersey, my short. I was decked out. I was ready to go. And I remember and I told them I didn't save a single one. So, it was all for nothing. But and the East keeper was just some like senior he was like wasn't even a keeper, and he was just standing in the goal, and he would just like step to his right and save with his foot. And I'm like, what am I doing? I remember I was so nervous. Like that was my first time really in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
And like all the Bailey, they were probably just, let's be honest, they're like probably just like drunk dads and stuff. all the guys that were there were just like probably drunk dads, and it was awesome. Like they were screaming at me like, come on, get a save. I was like, I'm trying, but like it was a good time, and I enjoyed being on the field, and it ended pretty quickly. It went quicker. It goes by so much quicker when you're actually out there. But like 1 minute we stepped on, next minute we were off. But then Nick came and said hello for like a brief moment, and then we were back into the seats. But that was games back then at Nippert, man, they were a good time.
What's funny is there's probably more than a few people of those drunk dads that were in the Bailey this past Monday watching you play again.
Yeah, they probably have no clue that was that's funny. Yeah, definitely a full circle moment, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So you're with the academy, and you do go to Northwestern for one season. You leave the academy before coming back. What was the thought process there of coming back, or what went into that decision to leave the college game and come back to the academy?
Yeah. So basically, because I had my season at Northwestern, and then I came back in December for winter break, as most colleges do. And I remember I got home, I was hanging out with my friends one day during the break, and I came home, and my dad came home shortly after, and I saw him. I heard his car pull in the driveway, but I didn't hear him come in. So I go look outside, and he's pacing around the house on the phone. And then he gets inside, and I'm like, what was that about? What are you doing? And he was like, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you. That was FCC calling me, Paul Walters, goalkeeper coach. They're interested in offering you a homegrown, but they just wanted to run it by the parents first to see if leaving college was an option. So that's when I caught wind of it. And then, we had more discussions, and, thankfully it went through, and now I'm here.
As an FC Cincinnati fan, I think you made the right call. We're very happy to have you here.
No Chicago winners at the very least. That's got to be a positive, right?
That is true. You also dodged what are now, I guess, away games at Oregon and USC. You have Big Ten experience here. You for or against the insane expansion of the Big Ten.
Have, UCLA in them now?
Yeah. UCLA, USC, Oregon. Washington too? Yeah.
Season 2? Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's
some of those road trips better than others, I would say.
2-day trip across the country. But Northwestern was a good time. I really enjoyed. It was. I mean, it's going to sound weird, but it was actually a hard decision to. It was that's what I was when I was talking about the discussions. It was actually I would say a strenuous time, those few weeks, because I was having discussions with the coaching staff at Northwestern, because obviously they wanted me to stay because I was their future. Because obviously when you invest in a new player, you have hopes that they're like your future. So yeah, no, we had a great coaching staff there, and a great group of guys. So it was tough to leave. But you got to think about your own future sometimes. So in that regards, you got to be a little selfish, So I thought about it, like what would be best for my future and my development, and I went with this route because nothing beats being in a professional environment every day. That's how you're going to get better. So especially as a young guy, I knew that was the key to developing quicker than if I was in college.
They'll probably still list you in the recruiting brochure at Northwestern saying we have a professional soccer player that has come through our program right there anyway. So you did them a solid anyway, I think.
So you are a local guy. So I've got to ask you a couple of local questions. We got to know where you stand. I will say there are correct answers to all three of these questions I have for you. The first one is Gold Star or Skyline?
Skyline. 100%.
Correct answer was Camp Washington, but I respect the company man answer there.
The reaction to that response from Kevin was phenomenal right there. Just like the sheer, like, what is this guy saying?
What is Camp Washington?
It's a different chili parlor in the Camp Washington neighborhood.
So the follow-up to this is always, what's your go-to order at Skyline?
Yeah.
My go-to, it's either, man, I'm going to sound really fat right now, but it's probably 4 cheese conies.
That's a solid order. Don't ever apologize for that.
Yeah. I am a big guy, so you kind of gotta fill the stomach. But yeah, 4 cheese conies, no onions. Not a big onion guy.
Fair enough.
See, I had to ask this question because we had Yuya Kubo on, and he said he loves Chipotle, and we got roasted for not asking him what his burrito order was, and we had to have Carter follow up with that information for us later.
Yeah, Yuya loves Chipotle. It's funny, but he loves that place.
The other one I got for you, Graders or UDF?
For ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Or gas.
Or however you want to take this question, I guess. Yeah.
That's a tough one. Because like growing up, I remember I'm going to go like the milkshake route.
Ooh, yeah.
So growing up, like I'd say like once or twice a week, my dad would always come home from work and a UDF milkshake was always the go-to. Because Graders was a little more expensive. So
yep.
as accessible for us, I guess. But so I'm gonna go UDF just because I grew up drinking that. But
we'll be clipping this interview and sending it to the Linder. We're sending this to the Linder family, so they appreciate you endorsing UDF right there, I think.
And UDF was the correct answer for that very reason.
Here we go.
The last one I have, and you might have tipped your hand earlier, but I'm curious, UC or Xavier?
UC.
Whoa, I like it.
Yeah. That's where my sister goes right now. So
perfect.
Yeah. So UC all the way. Sorry, Nick.
I'm sure he'll get over it. You've been really generous with your time, and we don't want to take too much of it because, like I said, we're keeping you from going home. I do have one final question for you, and awesome. That's it. Now that you are officially a goalkeeper with a starting goalkeeper, a goalkeeper that has started for FC Cincinnati, will you be joining Roman Celentano and growing the mustache out?
Honestly, I would if I could. I don't know if you see it, but I cannot grow facial hair. I've been trying, but I at one point I grew it out for months, and I just looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. It was just so I wish I could. Maybe I'd have to grow a little like peach fuzz and like dye it just for people to see it. But I wish I could, but I can't.
Is there any truth to the rumor that having a mustache makes you a better goalkeeper?
There could be some truth to that.
You have to live up to the mustache every day. Like if you have a mustache and you can't do your job,
that extra confidence, like you feel good, you look good, play good.
I was gonna say you could probably talk to Santos or Assad or Orishano for some hair dye tips. Those guys, they always got a different look.
Yeah. Oh. Like changes every week. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Paul, again, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck rest of the season, rest of the tournament, man. This was a lot of fun. We're all pulling for you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Kevin, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool. You know what was really cool about it? And like, I wanted desperately to talk about this in the first segment. It didn't hit me until we were kind of prepping for this interview a little bit that this is the first person, I think, who was a fan of FC Cincinnati who played for FC Cincinnati.
Yeah. Like, we've had other homegrown signings, but they were like wink, wink, nudge, nudge homegrowns. Like, they didn't really truly come from Cincinnati through the academy. Or they were, they played college elsewhere and then came back and things like that. So it's always been a little awkward, but he was in the crowd at Nippert for the Chicago Fire Open Cup match, saw Hildebrandt stand on his head, win the penalties, got to be a kid on the field in the debut season in MLS, and still goes on to make his debut for the first team. Man, we are old now, Chief. That's what this means.
Yeah, when he was talking about the drunk dads in the Bailey, I was like,
oh, hey.
Oh, boy.
I was in the Bailey for that match.
Oh, boy. No, it's wild to think about that you could have been walking around the concourse of Nippert Stadium in that game, and you were walking by someone who was eventually going to play for FC Cincinnati. And that's... Yeah. And it makes you wonder, like, you're walking around the concourse of TQL Stadium. Kids walking by with a Lucho Acosta jersey. One of those kids could grow up to actually play for this team. And that's kind of like a moment, like in that interview. I don't know that I was ready for when he said that. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. It's also too, like, what makes the homegrown process and the academy process so much more fun than drafts, I think. Like, the NBA abandoned regional drafts a long time ago. I'm sure baseball had regional drafts as well. I don't know that for a fact. But like, that's how the Big O was able to stay in Cincinnati, right? Like, there were regional drafts in the NBA, and that was fun. You don't get that anymore. Like, in the NFL these days, it was a minor miracle that Joe Burrow kind of fell to the nearest professional team that was like, 100 miles away from his hometown or whatever. It's really cool that a local kid who grew up rooting for the team has the opportunity to not just play for the team, but come up through their academy, sort of cut his teeth in his development, playing for this team at every level that was available to him from the moment they started doing this. That is cool. And that is I hope, the future of this team. Yeah.
That's just neat. And just the idea that he was there just going crazy with the rest of us, yelling, Mitch says no. That was neat. Great interview. Thank you so much to him for joining. Shout out to the team for making that happen on really short notice so that we could get that and set that up for everybody. So we find ourselves in sort of a longer segment 3 than usual because we got a lot of business to talk about here. I want to start. We got a game to preview for Friday, but I do want to start with this idea that as we listen to this, or as we release this you'll be listening to this on Thursday, August 8th. There will be 6 days left in the summer transfer window for MLS. And I guess all quiet on the West End front would be the best way to say this right here. FC Cincinnati, like we talked about with Pat Brennan on the Sunday episode, 2 open U22 spots, an open senior roster spot by virtue of Nick Haglund being placed on season-ending injury. They have filled the roster spot vacated by Matt Miazga with Cheeto, as we've previously discussed. Persistent rumors and not so subtle indications from everyone that they are going to move on from Aaron Bupenza. Yeah, maybe.
Some rumors out there now of some actual offers or loan destinations for him in Greece. So that's nice to see.
So that's nice. The only rumor to speak of that is out there that seemed to be gaining some strength and maybe some cold water poured on it today by a couple of reports. But that Richard Sanchez, a midfielder, 27 or 28-year-old midfielder from Club America down in Liga MX. There was a lot of chatter about him potentially moving to FC Cincinnati. At one point, there was a rumored fee number of $5 million as a transfer for him. He's on about a $1.1 to $1.2 million salary in Liga MX for Club America, which that transfer number would make him a designated player if that's what it was, a transfer, not a loan. But otherwise, other than that name, there has been just nothing out there for this team. It's been very, very quiet. And like I said in the first segment, it's interesting to me that the only two names that we have heard thus far that have been connected to FC Cincinnati during, this portion of things have been midfielders, Weston McKennie, and now Richard Sanchez. No striker names, not even a whiff of a striker name. What do you make of where this team is at the transfer window, given that they've basically got less than a week to figure out whatever it is they're going to do?
It is interesting that, we haven't seen the striker name. We haven't seen any U22 rumors out there as well, regardless of position, which I think is noteworthy considering there were indications that this would be opening up. So you'd assume they would have had something, in the works going into the summer. It was something in mind.
And Kevin Kelsey was the worst kept secret on the planet that this team was pursuing him prior to him signing here. So it's not like this team is like really good at hiding U22 interest. Everyone and their brother knew this team was after Kevin Kelsey in the winter window. Yeah,
and Barrial too was there was quite a bit of noise about him before he came. And Gulu, I think, was mentioned as well. Like the footballing world is kind of keyed into like when a youngster makes a big money move around the world, like a lot of people take notice. So people are more in tune to those rumors. But what I think is the most interesting is Sanchez and McKennie are similar profile players. I don't mean in terms of name recognition or necessarily even quality. I think they're both, I would say, underrated players just from different positions, but they're both box-to-box midfielders who are sort of possession-oriented players. McKennie, a little more on the attacking side, a little more flexibility. Sanchez, a little bit more time at defensive midfielder, but still very, very good at what they do. But both of them just sort of feel like Buka upgrades, which is interesting, not because I don't think Buka can't be upgraded upon or that I don't know that Buka needs to be upgraded upon, but it's interesting that seems to be where the effort is going, at least publicly, with these guys, that there isn't a big money move for a striker that's out there publicly anyway. And it makes you think that like Pavel Buka has been so good for this team. And a point that you have made in the past as well is, in a salary cap league, you don't really have the luxury of constantly bringing in another guy to push a starter down the depth chart. I think it's a good way to build a team in general. I think it works really well in Europe. I don't know if it's the most efficient way to do it in MLS. I will say, though, Buka is kind of sort of on a wage bill that would suggest rotational starter. So it wouldn't surprise me, but it is interesting that everybody and their mother is screaming DP striker, DP striker, DP striker. Bogart's been on that forever, DP striker. And it really looks like they're trying to do DP box-to-box midfielder.
Yeah. And I guess part of that is that, like, we've talked about this before, this idea that if the goal is to make Yuya Kubo the full-time striker, he can't be the backup at a lot of these positions.
Right.
And if you already had a DP midfielder in this team and that you were in the similar situation, so just imagine that you have that player like a Weston McKennie or a Richard Sanchez as your starting midfielder, but you still have these depth issues where Yuya Kubo is constantly being forced to play in the midfield to cover card suspensions or injuries or whatever.
Yeah.
profile of player you'd be targeting is Pavel Buka.
Right,
Someone making
right.
about $450,000 where you're below max salary budget charge, younger, coming
Cheap
from a
transfer
smaller
fee.
league,
Yep.
not a reasonable transfer fee they're on. So it feels weird only because Buka has been so good
Yeah.
already, but his profile would be such of that this is the player you'd be looking for as a backup, and you'd just never be able to see what kind of quality he has, which is you've almost put yourself in an odd situation by seeing how good he is to where it feels weird that you wouldn't just roll with it. I don't know. I can't figure out what this team is doing right now. I really it doesn't make a lot of sense. We finally got some names on Aaron Bupenza potentially moving, which feels like the threshold move to all this. The lack of movement on the U22s is weird to me just because it feels like this is an area where this team should be able to flex a little bit of ownership's willingness to spend.
Yeah.
The Sanchez rumors, we fought this out on Discord this week. Join the post Discord so you can see some more unfiltered thoughts between episodes. $5 million doesn't make it move for me. I view this as a low ambition move for a team like FC Cincinnati, that the teams that we are competing with are bringing in names like Olivier Giroud and Griezmann are the names that are being linked to other places. We're competing with Miami for trophies. You know, this team needs to be thinking more in the 8, 10, $12 million range when it comes to transfer fees. And that's not to say that, there's lots of good players that make $5 million. I mean, he could be really great and undervalued. Okay, neat. I'll bet you there's a better player for 10. And that's the player I want us to get. Because at the end of the day, with DP money, it's not my money. You can spend as much of it as you want to. There's no point in looking for value. And I'm not going to be okay with a billionaire saying we can't open the wallet for just a little bit better player. I'm not going to applaud ownership for finding a great value DP. I'll applaud him for finding a great value player that fits under a max TAM deal,
Right.
like Cheeto. I'll applaud you all day for finding a way to make him a TAM player. That's awesome. Matt Miazga, awesome that you found value there. DPs, I want you to open the wallet and spend as much money as you possibly can to buy the best player you possibly can, because the teams we're competing with are doing that.
Yeah, especially on the back of increasing ticket prices.
Yeah.
Of doing these sort of cash grab tournaments in the middle of the season, asking people to be patient with Miles Robinson not being a part of this team for huge stretches to fulfill career ambitions outside of the team. Yeah.
If you're willing to pay $30 million for Weston McKennie, you can pay $15 million for someone that won't sell as many jerseys, but that's a better player than Richard Sanchez. I'm sorry, I don't know the man, never even seen him play. I guarantee you there's a better player out there than Richard Sanchez if you're looking for a midfielder for this team.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a great MLS player. There's a greater MLS player that you can get for more money, and especially that's a great point on the ticket thing. You're jacking my ticket prices. I want to see us doing a little more than, no shade on him, but Obi was a barely DP. I think that this team needs to be moving on from barely DPs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, I guess just watch this space, and maybe by the time this episode comes out, this will be dated because we'll have some fresh new rumors to talk about. But I think that we're all in agreement that if this team wants to get where it's going, there needs to be more done this window than just Cheeto.
Yeah. I will also say, if you are from the school of thought that judges player transfers based on the team's fan base as they react to the rumors, Club America fans are so excited to get rid of Richard Sanchez. They are celebrating the post saying that he may be coming to MLS or may be coming to Cincinnati, and they are cursing to the high heavens when the cold water was poured on it, saying he's unlikely to move to Cincinnati this window. So
do you think that it would change my mind if I learned he went by Dick Sanchez, though? I feel like that might be.
Or we could call him Dick Sanchez.
I feel like you can't call someone named Richard Dick unless they're into it.
But is not American, and that is a American thing. So
I had an Uncle Dick growing up, and like it didn't occur to me until later how kind of weird that was.
Uncle Dick. You can't go by Uncle Dick. You can go by Dick, I guess, elsewhere in your life. You can't go by Uncle Dick.
You know what? You know what? I kind of asked my dad at some point, like, I knew him as Uncle Dick. Did that bother him? Like,
maybe he didn't want this life.
Yeah. Like, was that just my dad saying, "Oh, that's my brother Dick"? Like, and because
his
I
real
think everybody
name
else
is...
might have called him Richard. I don't know. I use my Uncle Dick.
His real name is Michael.
Yeah, in hindsight, maybe that was really weird. And like, here's my nephew why does your nephew call you Uncle Dick? It's like, my brother's a shithead. I don't know what to say about this. Kevin, we've got a game because they're coming fast and furious right here.
Sure.
FC Cincinnati on Friday at, just to be confusing, after 2 8:00 starts, a 7:30 p.m. start on Friday against a Mexican side that I had in front of me. It is Santos Laguna.
Santos Laguna currently sitting in 16th place in the Apertura after 4 matches. They got 1 draw in there. They sit just above Mazatlan and Querétaro, if that gives you some sense of where they stand in the league.
Yeah, they've lost to San Luis, Puebla. They drew Pumas, then lost to Atlas, lost to Tigres, lost to DC United, and then drew Atlanta. And apparently that was enough to get them through in their group.
Drew Atlanta, 1 in penalties. Atlanta, through 2 versions of Leagues Cup, is the only MLS team to never advance out of the group stage.
You hate to see it.
Probably inevitable that one team got left behind there, and it was Atlanta. And they couldn't beat them. It was a 0-0 draw with Atlanta. So
they're the 30th seed in this tournament.
Yeah.
So
I'm not expecting much out of this team. Is that
so I guess here is my question to you, Kevin.
Okay.
This game's on Friday. We are now into the knockout rounds. On a scale of, if the game against Querétaro was like we'll say a 6 in terms of going for it.
Mm-hmm.
The game against NYCFC was like a 2,
right,
in terms of going for it. And a 10 would be our first choice 11 going for it. Where would you put this game in terms of the going for it?
I think it's a 7.
7?
I think this is a team and a game that you can have your first choice guys on the bench. And just like we saw against NYCFC, you can pull the lever at the 70th minute if you need, or even the 60th minute, if you feel like you need to get the win. But otherwise, the backups, quote unquote, ought to be able to handle this.
So so taking the lineup that we just saw on Monday, who slots in as starting that wasn't starting in that game?
Ooh, so I think it's going to be super interesting what they do at goalkeeper, because it's generally frowned upon in a cup competition to pull a backup to put your starter back in a tournament. Now, granted,
Roman played match 1 against Querétaro.
Roman played match 1, and the weird dead rubber nature of the NYCFC game is different. So it's probably Roman back in. I do wonder if you have your first choice backline in. If that's Murphy, Cheeto, Robinson. I think it's interesting whether or not Cheeto or Robinson will take the center spot. But I think we kind of have to see Roman in this main back 3.
Or would you put Evan in, just that every one of your goalkeepers got to start through the first 3 games of Leagues Cup?
There's an argument for Evan genuinely here.
Yeah, just, where it's everybody gets a turn. We're just doing it like, family style here.
For outside backs, I mean, you could run it back. because you leave Yedlin on the bench and you know you've got Assad ready to go. I do Pinto again. I do Woboto again. I do Valenzuela again. Maybe Santos gets the start over Baird and I keep Kelsey in. And I'm not saying Santos is a starter, but I think I'd run that back. Like, I don't think. Yeah. So I guess my thing is keeper, and if not keeper, at the very least, the center backs. Otherwise, I'd run the same lineup back.
Yeah. I tend to think that I want to see Cheeto out there from the start and going the 90 in this game. I think if Lucho is training, I think Lucho.
You think he plays?
I think he goes. That's not Pat Noonan's style, but I think that if he's training, I think at the very least he's going 45. I don't know if that's the first 45 or the last 45, but he's going 45. So that would probably lead me to believe he could be a halftime sub in this game. I think you put Kubo up top, and I think Kubo starts and just he's up top.
Do you run just the first choice starting 11 and just try to win 7-1 or something?
I just don't have any idea how good this team is. I guess not good, considering I don't think they've scored a goal in open play in this tournament.
Yeah, no, they're not a good team.
Now, let's see here. Did they score against? Nope, they didn't score against DC. They didn't score against Atlanta. So they haven't scored a game. They haven't scored a goal, period, in this tournament.
The last time they scored a goal was July 13th.
So maybe that goes to your point of just have the starters on the bench, and if you find yourself down, pull the panic button and hope that you can put some pressure on them.
Or just try to win by a bunch.
Or just try to win.
Sub everybody out.
When would our next... I was trying to figure this out. When would our next game be if we win this game?
It would be... So the sort of placeholder date is the 12th, but I think it'll be, a day before or after that. Okay. As a possibility. But yeah, you'd be looking at probably a Monday or a Tuesday match.
But like a 5 or a 6 day turnaround time?
What do we got this on?
The set.
8, 9. So 1, 2, 3. It's only like a 3-day turnaround.
Oh, don't love that.
Yeah, 3 or 4 day. Because then the quarterfinals is the 16th tentatively. So yeah.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the same schedule and it says round of 32, 8-7. Today's the 7th.
So maybe it's the day after then.
I don't know. Well, whatever. Like,
it does say that, and there are no games on today.
The hell, this bogus tournament.
This is stupid.
I've always loved the Leagues Cup. I'm always saying this. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a must-win game.
Yeah.
So I want them to win it, and I would play whoever it takes to win this game. That's my deep analysis of this.
I like it. If you had to put a score on it, what would you say the score would be?
I feel like I came the closest to predicting this last game too, by the way.
You did.
I was like, yeah.
I think you said 5-4.
5-4. Yeah. A lot of goals. I was team lot of goals.
You were right.
3-1 FC.
Sure. I'll go 2-0. I think we can hold a clean sheet against these guys, especially if my prediction of the first choice backline it comes true.
Right. Yeah, Miles and Cheeto. That would be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, they got to get
what about
some
Miles,
time.
Cheeto, and a Gaydu? How would you feel about that?
I don't like it because I feel like it's rude to Ian Murphy.
That's fair enough. Just thinking out loud, thinking outside the box.
But I like seeing a Gaydu more. So
yeah,
it is tempting, I will say.
Kevin, do you have Patreon questions for us to round this episode out?
I do. Chief, it is August 7th, and I have to finish up July questions. This is the not good for me here. So
not good.
So if you would like to support the show and you're not buying beers at Streetside or buying t-shirts or other apparel at Cinci Shirts using our aforementioned discount codes, you can give us a couple bucks a month via Patreon. And in doing so, you get to ask us some questions and we read them on air. So as I mentioned, a little behind. Here's some questions from July. Carl asks, the Miami game seems to have highlighted, this is how long this has been, seems to have highlighted that we have several goal scorers to choose from. How many goal scorers do we have this year, and how does it compare to prior years? Well, Carl, if you're expecting us to do homework, you have supported the wrong podcast. I did not look this up. In terms of total overall goal scores, it really hasn't been that many. I feel like in years past, we've been a lot more spread out. What are we looking at here? We have 11 goal scorers in total, and Lucho Acosta has 11 goals by himself.
Yeah.
It's really Lucho Acosta with 11, Yuya Kubo with 9, and then it falls off. Kevin Kelsey, Luca Orishano each with 5, Buka with 4, Bupenza with 2, Corey Baird with 2, Sergio Santos with 2, Yamil Assad with 2, Dotto with 1, and it is Miles Robinson with 1. So there you go.
Yeah. You know what's interesting to me? That the next game Yamil Assad plays, and this is only I'm looking at the numbers right now. And this is this isn't counting Leagues Cup, obviously. What would the odds have been that Yamil Assad has more minutes than Aaron Bupenza by August? Brutal.
It's so funny because Assad has been so good. But man, if you told him he was going to be this much of a contributor this year, I would have assumed something went horribly wrong with this season.
I should have asked it during the preview for the match, but if Aaron Bupenza is in the 18 for this Friday's game, is that a bad sign or a terrible sign?
It's a terrible sign.
Yeah.
It means that not only is a sale not close, is that we are so desperate that we are overlooking any, let's say, behavioral issues that may be going on just to have a warm body on the bench.
Yeah. Not great, Bob.
Not great.
It does feel this year, and like I'm a big feels guy.
Yeah.
It does feel like this team gets goals from a lot of different sources this year. Because last year, you ask like who's scoring goals on this team, and Vasquez, Bupenza, Lucho, Barreal. Wasn't a lot of goals coming from anybody that wasn't in that group right there. This year, it feels like the Pavel scoring now, Assad scoring, Yuya scoring, Kelsey scoring.
Yeah, maybe
Lucho
I'm wrong
scoring,
with my impression.
Luka
I think you might be right.
Scoring.
Yeah,
it feels like a lot of different people on this team are with the ball at their feet, goal dangerous this year.
That I will agree with. Yes, more guys are, threatening with the ball. I will say one thing that we don't have so much this year that we have had in the past is goals from center backs. We've got the one from Miles Robinson. I'm hoping that changes with Cheeto. But Miazga and Hagelin were sort of our goal scoring threats as center backs, and losing both of them may be an underrated thing that we've lost on set pieces. So
the other thing I really enjoyed, and I don't know if we talked about it on the episode, but at the Querétaro match with Lucho off the field, there was a moment where we were going to get a PK opportunity. And I was curious who takes those with Lucho off the field. Yuya confidently grabs the ball and strides to the spot. So that was interesting to me.
I like it. He's got the confidence. He's our striker. That's what I'm trying to tell people.
Yeah.
Ian asks, what's your favorite item from Street Side and Cinci shirts? Oh man, what a great question.
I love that. Promo code the post Cinci at checkout or in the store at Cinci shirts. Mention the post Cinci at Streetside Brewery for $1 off your pints. I've been drinking during the course of this taping a boring beer from Streetside. It is just a straight up American lager. If you are bringing someone to Streetside who isn't into the more experimental types of IPAs and stouts, it is a fantastic beer there. The English mild there is also very, very good.
Yeah.
But whenever they put a milkshake IPA on draft there, you got to try that. That's usually pretty good stuff.
I'm probably going to get the name of it wrong, but they've had a milkshake beer on there that's like a breakfast cereal type thing.
I've had this one.
That's good.
Yeah. John Lemon was one of their beers. There was like a lemon meringue breakfast
that's a good one.
or lemon meringue pastry milkshake stout. Very, very good stuff. When they do their they'll occasionally do their stout, barrel-aged stout things where they're all like 18% ABV. If you want to go and just not feel your face for a night, that's always a fun stop too. In terms of Cincy shirts, well, it's obviously the Opie shirt is my favorite thing that they sell.
Absolutely. Love all of the post merch. We need more merch. So if you have an idea for a shirt, let me know in the Discord. I'll work on getting something together. Okay. It's time to shake up
the merch line.
It's time to shake up the merch line. Okay. Another question, man. This is one that we need Grayson for, because I feel like Grayson would have some really strong opinions about this.
Then he needs to show up for taping every so often. God, how about that?
You'd think so. Brock asks, the way Canadians say a boot is very unpleasant, which I think is a bold take. Ooh. What accent do you find to be the most annoying? Chief, how would you like to be canceled?
I just like a boot because it's an immediate tell that someone is from Canada.
Yes.
Like when he says they don't like that, it's like, well, somebody didn't watch Peter Jennings on World News Tonight growing up.
It's like the
unpleasant
Inglorious Bastards holding up the three fingers. Yeah. You're not one of us.
I'm curious. I was thinking about this when I was when I travel abroad. I can't recognize, like, if someone's speaking Spanish. Like, to a Spanish speaker, Spanish from Spain sounds completely different than Spanish from Mexico. Spanish from Mexico sounds different than Spanish from other parts of South America. And there are definitely like regional dialects and stuff like that. With English in Cincinnati sounds very different than English in New York, which sounds very different than English in the Deep South, which sounds very different than English in England. But I was wondering, if you're in a country that doesn't speak English, can they tell the difference between someone from the UK and someone from America?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, like, I know most Americans probably struggle with placing English accents within England. Like, you've got to be pretty clued in to know, like, a Midlands accent versus a Northern accent versus, like, a posh Southern accent.
Right. Or you watched the first season of Doctor Who where they made fun of Christopher Eccleston for sounding like he was from Manchester.
Right. So
lots of planets heading north.
Back when I was in translation services, there was a game that we would all play that was really fun. I'll see if I can dig up this website. Basically, you would listen to clips of people speak a foreign language, and you had to guess what the language was. And it had some good obscure ones. Like, it'd start you off pretty easy, and then you'd start to have to figure out like different African languages and things like that. You're like, oh boy, I'm way out of my depth here. It's good. It's a really fun game. If I can dig it up, I'll post it in the Discord.
Yeah. So we were just curious, like, if you could pass yourself off as British, even when you were in a foreign country, if they don't understand like the differences between English dialects.
I think English is probably a hard one to do because of how permeable American culture is, and British culture for that matter. But I do feel like for most Americans, you could interchange an Australian and English accent and they would not notice that you've switched it up on them.
Right. I don't hate any version of English. Like, they're all pleasant to me in different weird ways.
South African can be a little different if you're not used to that one.
Yeah.
The Afrikaans accent.
Afrikaner. Yeah. All accents are beautiful. I'm not going to get canceled by claiming one is worse than the other.
You know what language sucks ass? Dutch. For non-language reasons or cultural reasons.
Oh, no, wait. No, obviously. Hold on. I have the answer. The worst regional dialect is obviously San Diegan.
The famous San Diegan accent.
You can hear it from a mile away, and it's like claws on a goddamn chalkboard.
They just sound so relaxed and
just carefree with great weather.
Happy with their life.
Rooting for a loser team.
Okay. This is a great question from David Ziegler. Would you rather have an MLB MLS season or an NFL MLS season? 160 games or 18 games?
Well, clearly the NFL season.
No way. Give me the MLB season.
That's so sicko.
Here's the funny thing.
No, here's the problem, though. Is that all right, so I used to live and die.
This is where I was going.
With the Reds. Like, I used to watch all these games. I had an active account, like a really uncomfortably active account on the Red Zone message board. Like every one of these games, I was like, you can't fire the manager. How can your hitters not be more plate disciplined and striking out all this often? And who the hell thinks it's a good idea to have, Adam Dunn out in left field every game? I used to be one of those people where it's like getting mad over which middle reliever was being called in to pitch in a game.
Right.
And I still have some friends that are like that. We're like on a group thread. It'll just be like, oh, the Reds suck again. It's like, yeah, there's like 162 more of these games. They'll figure it out. I don't know. Or they won't. But like nothing is being solved tonight in June.
Like, I think part of the appeal of baseball is the pastoral nature of baseball, so that no one game can truly weigh that much. And I think there's some interesting philosophical value to a sport that sort of takes some of the pressure off an individual moment like that. But like, I'm looking at like Lance McAllister's Twitter feed the other day.
It's just unhinged.
Oh my God. He's like, after the trade deadline and these two games, this will go down as one of the most impactful weeks in Reds history. I'm like, bro, you're going to forget about this week next week. It does not matter.
Like, it's what I love about baseball that people forget. And that's that it's the old line, momentum lasts only as long as tomorrow's starter.
Right.
And each of these games is its own unique little special snowflake of a series of events and pitches and matchups. And, you string them together long enough and eventually you figure out who's good enough to make the playoffs. You eventually catch up to your Pythag and everything sort of works itself out in the long run. And it lends itself to a sport where it is best enjoyed passively, throwing a game on in the background, having something else that you're doing, drinking a beer or two, or if you're at the game, chatting with your friends. Maybe when you get down to the end of the season, you start living and dying on every pitch. But for the most part, it's not the idea of fans showing up for 162 soccer games and singing for 90 minutes. I'm not there on it. I'm not there on it.
I was thinking about this too. I really like this question. So soccer sits at a really interesting spot in American sports where all of the other sports have too many or too few games. And I think MLS and soccer in general for a regular season, it sits at a good spot where you are going regularly and often enough that you do build a stronger sense of community with the people that you go with, that the pregame rituals get a little more ingrained because there's still few of them where each one is an event, but there's enough of them that you get to really live in that moment. Like in the NFL, it's 8 home games and they're big deals and tailgating culture is huge and I'm not taking that away or anything, but it's only 8, Yeah. 12 if you're a good team, right?
And so MLS becomes, you have an NFL season of home games.
Right.
17. There are 17 total NFL games for now. You have 17 home games in MLS. I like that. I like the NFL schedule. I'm one of these people where it's like, I like the idea that every game does matter. And that if you want to be unhinged over a game, go ahead, because it probably really does have a huge impact on your season, what goes on right here. I loved that about college football before the college football playoffs.
Loved that about college
and
football.
That your season could, in fact, be ruined in week 2.
Yeah.
And that just people would lose their minds over every single one of these games. Give me that back. when it comes to college football. I think soccer is probably, it could stand to lose a few games. I think that like an optimal season length for soccer is probably 28. Yeah. 28 games is where I think it probably needs to land. But 34 is not unwieldy. It's not unworkable. I just think that the other thing that's great about the NFL and the way its schedule works out is that by nature of how the schedule is, it's game and then a week of discussions about what happened that morphs into previewing what's about to happen. And then the cycle repeats itself the next week. And I wish there was more of that in MLS, that there was more of okay, we had a weekend full of games. Monday is Hot Take Monday, and let's have hot takes about what happened this weekend. Tuesday is team news, who's hurt, who's that. Wednesday, we're moving into previewing the next week's matchup, and just the league needs to be better about cultivating that news cycle in between matches. I think
pushing the narrative along. Gotta say too that like soccer is continuing to add more and more games to player schedules generally, and it is wearing down players faster. There was a chart somebody posted where it's like Vinicius Jr., number of games played in his career by the age of 24 versus Ronaldinho. And Ronaldinho played half as many games as Vinicius Jr. Like there is a point where there is too much. It's just oversaturating the amount you can possibly care by having so much out there, but then also the risk to the player's health is absolutely a problem. Chief, we have one final July question, and then we can end it. Porter Henson asks, in your expert opinion.
Well, you've already started this question off incorrectly, but let's go.
Expert is in all caps. It might be sarcastic.
I'm going to go with sarcasm.
Are MLS transfer rumors and details more, the same, or less transparent / accessible than other leagues around the world? There's follow-up questions, but I'll touch on them when we touch on them.
You can so less, but the reason why they're less is that, number one, American sports culture is way more secretive when it comes to GMs and front office people. There's just a culture of secrecy. And part of that is borne out that like the NFL and the NHL in particular, but also baseball to a large extent, that everybody plays everything close to the vest. Leaking is like the worst cardinal sin that you could ever possibly have when it comes to details.
Yeah.
The single entity league makes it a lot harder too, because in effect, a lot of these international transfers are going through one team at a time. So there's really no rivals that are going to be leaking that there's multiple teams bidding when it comes to MLS, because only one MLS team bids on a player at a time.
Yeah.
There's also not a well-developed media for MLS.
It's basically just Bogart. Right.
But even like the local, we didn't really talk about it because it was kind of a bullshit article. But like Jason Williams popped off at the mouth about MLS struggling for coverage. And it's not worth giving him the page clicks or the time on this show.
Right.
But like it is true that there's a lot of teams in this league where they don't have a robust local media ecosystem. We are very fortunate with this team that there have been at times as many as 5-6 credentialed media reporters from different media sources, including the Post occasionally, that is credentialed following this team. And when there's that many people, the odds of someone talking to someone and picking up something that then becomes a rumor gets a lot higher. When the only person covering your team is the team's beat writer, you know who doesn't leak a lot of transfer rumors? I love Carter as much as the next fellow, and I think Carter is great at his job. You know what would get Carter called into the boss's office is if Carter was posting transfer rumors about FC Cincinnati.
Especially if he's like deep investigative journalism, his own team, and he's like sneaking into Albright's office and stealing documents.
Like this is not Watergate. Okay, it doesn't work this way. So, and then the other thing too is just to put a top on it from my point of view is also the league is just it doesn't have the international pedigree that a lot of these other leagues do. I mean, you don't read a lot of transfer rumors about some of the smaller leagues in Europe just because there's not as many eyeballs on them for covering them. So
and that's a big piece is those outlets that do trade in that. And it's very funny too, because in the US, transfer rumors are seen as tabloidy, and like you don't necessarily want your reporters writing about rumors, even if it's not their own reporting, just like somebody else is rumoring this. Like you don't do that. But even the BBC, the Guardian, the Times, like big J journalist outlets in England have dedicated little sections where they trade in this kind of stuff. There's absolutely a market for it. There's also outlets in Europe in particular that are notorious for making shit up just to get clicks because they know it'll get clicks. And I'm not saying nobody's lying out there, but there isn't quite the incentive to be just straight up lying about things about MLS transfers. There's also, too, to add on to a couple of your points, MLS roster rules are so weird in that they prevent a lot of things from being true. Like if FC Cincinnati and Columbus got in a bidding war for a big Venezuelan striker, it literally can't happen.
Yeah.
So there's no intrigue to the story there. And then the other piece of it too is, especially with MLS doing a lot of its business in smaller leagues, or I'll even say not English speaking leagues, the other end of the transfer rumor is just not writing in English. So you're probably not seeing it. Like the Richard Sanchez news is all over Mexican media. If you don't speak Spanish and you're not subscribed to those outlets, there is nothing in your view.
Yeah. That was the other thing I was going to say, too, is that part of the other problem is that if you're going to be someone that chases rumors a lot, you've probably got to speak a few different languages. Yeah. And there are more people like that in Europe that are bi and trilingual than there are in the American media marketplace. Like, love y'all. How many languages do you speak, Kevin?
Barely one.
Barely one. Yeah, no, I tried Duolingo before I went to France. Like, I'm not going to be trading in any French rumors anytime soon or speaking with French sources. It's just not going to happen. And so I think the language barrier is tough. And I also think that, a lot of the players that we're talking about coming to MLS are coming from South America. Like, if you don't have contacts in South America, you wouldn't have found out that Luca Orishano is coming to FC Cincinnati. It's just, it's a different media ecosystem in a different language with different people. And I think someone would have to really want to make that their trade. Tom Bogert has done a pretty damn good job of making that his trade. And I think there probably is a market for a competitor to Tom Bogert, but that person would probably have to be, at the very least, extremely fluent in Spanish and probably fluent in at least one or two other languages, probably French, and then maybe some third language. I don't know. Arabic. Like something like that. Like you're talking about that, like needing to be speak French, Spanish, and at least one other language, and then be deep diving into a lot of this stuff, deep into people's mentions, DMs, phone calls. It's a lot of work. Like Fabrizio has a lot of people working for him. Okay.
Yes.
He's not one person.
Yeah. And it is a lot of relationships and getting to know the general managers, the sporting directors, getting to know the second and third in command so that in a couple of years when they are in charge, you have a good relationship with them. And if you ever hear these guys, even on the NBA side, which the NBA is probably the closest you get to a transfer rumor market that is similar to Europe in the United States, these guys kind of hate their jobs. Like they have to live on 2 and 3 cell phones, and it's a true grind. And I know the mustache makes him look older, but Bogart's still a pretty young guy doing this game. So Yeah, like it's a tough gig as well, even if you are good at it and you start to gain some traction, to maintain is a whole nother thing as well. So
if this league gets bigger, someone else will also get involved in it. But like the league has to develop, there has to be a way to monetize being a rumor monger. And you know, if this league isn't big enough for someone like ESPN to cover, they're not going to pay a rumor monger in order to track this shit down.
Right. Yeah, and with it being single entity too, there might be something to MLS just intentionally getting leakier to help drive interest and directly feeding rumors to some of these guys. I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely a risk to that too, though. Just because, like, okay, you look at like what's going on with Cincinnati right now. It's like they were publicly after Weston McKennie, and look. I'm the worst person to be talking about this because I didn't want Weston McKennie. But if you're targeting Weston McKennie and you don't land Weston McKennie and you end up landing Richard Sanchez for $5 million, that rumor being out there kind of set expectations at an unrealistic level relative to who you end up signing.
Right.
And like, I don't know that the league would want to be doing that to its own team. So it's like you have to be careful with that, too, if you're going to try and, you know, astroturf, that sort of thing.
Oh, the other piece of that, too, Charlotte going after Marco Royce goes public.
Only to end up with Tim Ream.
End up with Tim Ream, and Marco Royce goes to LA Galaxy. Now, it takes two to tango, but did Charlotte's interest going public make the Galaxy think, well, we could turn ahead if we get the word into the right agent's, ear, and
that he only wants to sign with LA. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you can't bid against one another, but there ain't nothing that prevents you from calling the agent and being like, tell your guy that he doesn't want to negotiate with Charlotte.
Right. Hey, LA has a spot. Just mention it. Have him shop for a couple of houses in Malibu, see if he doesn't find somebody he likes.
Unbelievable. Kevin, this was a hell of an episode, I think. Are we out of questions right now?
We are out of July questions. We got 5 August questions at the moment. So if you've got a question, it is the month of August, and if you saw that post, you were subscribed. So please ask your question. We will get to them. I promise. I'm going to make a promise I know I can't keep. I'm going to promise we answer all the August questions before the end of August. So get your questions in. Make that as difficult as you can for us.
Please. Make us have to work to keep that promise. Nothing would make us happier. Anything else from us, Kevin, today, or can we let the people go with that?
I think that's more than enough of us.
All right. Well, onward with the League's Cup. See everybody Friday, and go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cinci Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cinci. You can check us out at thepostcinci.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.